Welcome everyone to the session of marketing research and analysis. Today we will discuss about the report writing and report preparation. After a researcher has completed his research, right, the final outcome or the final the tangible thing that comes out of the research study is the report preparation. Could be any report, could be a marketing research report because the subject is marketing research and analysis, could be marketing research report, could be any science report, could be any report in any social science other areas, could be anywhere, right. So, when you talk about the report preparation and presentation, it is extremely important for the researcher to be very careful in preparing this report, right, because ultimately whatever he has done or she has done, the outcome is only this report, he has got nothing else to prove than this report, right. So, the researcher has to be very careful, right. So, what should you do while keeping in a report, while making a report, how should you keep in, what should you keep in mind and all these things we will discuss today. So, what is a report basically, how would you define a report? Let us say a report is the final summation or the integration of all the findings and the detailed study of the at the end of the day, right. But it is only not, it is not only the finding, but the research has, the report has many other things to it, right. The report starts with basically, and you can say the topic, the title of the research report, the introduction to the study, the literature, right, the design, the research design, the methodology, the analysis, the findings, the discussion, the references, right, used, the tables and graphs used, everything all together is very important to be put forth in the report, right. Generally I have seen students make wonderful work, but they are very poor at report writing and report preparation, right. As a result, what happens is they do not get the justified result or the marks or the outcome what they should have got at the end of the day. On the other hand, there are also few very intelligent students who have not done a very great work, but they make the report in such a way that the report looks awesome, it looks fantastic, and as a result everybody appreciates the work. Okay. So, what is this research report? Research reports are detailed and accurate accounts of the conduct of disciplined studies accomplished to solve problems or to reveal new knowledge, said by Busha and Herter 1988, right. So, what are they saying? Is a detailed and accurate account of the conduct of disciplined studies. So, if you have done a study, discipline study, a study on, let us say, the marketing problems, the product development in a market, the pricing mechanism done in a market, so and so, right. So, to solve a new problem or to reveal new knowledge, then this is nothing but it is called a research report, right. So, what is the meaning of the research report? The research report writing is the oral or written representation or presentation of the evidence and the findings in such detail and form as to be readily understood and accessed by the reader and as to enable him to verify the validity of the conclusions. Now, what does it mean? It means that your report is such a thing like, for example, when a child gets a reports card, the parent by looking at the report card immediately says whether the child is properly studying or not studying, whether he is taking interest in a particular subject or not taking interest in another subject or something, right. So, all this is nothing but just by watching the report card. Similarly, when a reader is reading a research report, it should be helpful to give him an idea what is this study all about, and it should help him in validating, to verify and validate the conclusions, right. So, this is not easy, obviously not easy, because that means you have tried to put forth your idea, your abstract thinking and all in a written format, right, and if this written format is not very well done, right, then the reader would be confused and your study would be less valid in nature, right. According to the American Marketing Society, its purpose is to convey to people interested the whole result of the study in sufficient detail and to enable each reader to comprehend the data and to determine himself the validity of the conclusions, right. So, the reader himself after studying the report would come to a position to say whether the conclusions are valid in itself or not, right. It covers disseminations, presents the conclusion for the information and knowledge to others, to check the validity of the generalizations, to encourage others to carry on research on the same or the allied problems or similar problems. Okay. So, this is what basically a research report does. So, let us see the importance of the report and the presentation. So, as it started with that the tangible products of the research effort, they are the only tangible thing, you do not have anything else to show to the world apart from your research report, right. That is why reports are maintained for a very long time and it could be helpful any time in your career. Management decisions are guided by the report and the presentation. So, if a research study has been done and the report has been provided, with the help of this report the management decides what strategies, what actions to take and not to take. The involvement of many marketing managers in the project is limited to the written report and the oral presentation. Okay. Management's decision to undertake marketing research in the future or to use the particular research supplier again will be influenced by the perceived usefulness of the report. So, for example, suppose you have hired a research agency and the research agency has made a report, and on basis of that report you decide whether to continue with the agency or not to continue with the agency. So, this just is one way to influence your client, to impress your client and to influence others, right. So, as I started the report preparation and the presentation process. So, initially when you start writing a report, first it starts with this 6 steps. So, what are they? We have discussed it more again and again in the initial classes also. Product problem definition, approach, research design and field work, data analysis, right, interpretation, conclusion and recommendations. So, the researcher interprets the data, concludes the data and then he starts recommending, right. He makes the presentation, the report preparation, he makes the report preparation, a tangible hard copy or could be soft copy also. Then an oral presentation, reading of the report by the client and finally the research follow up. So, this entire 6 steps if you see, where we have in the first step we have clubbed most of the work of the research study, and in the others we have asked to conduct the study, to prepare the report, to make the oral presentation and maybe present yourself in front of your client, maybe your teacher or anywhere, right. So, structure of the research report, how should the structure be? Generally a research report is which is called a dissertation or thesis. PhD, all PhD students would be highly interested in this subject, because at the end of the day they have to make a dissertation report or a thesis, and how should this thesis be? Generally I have seen there is always a confusion, there is a war of thoughts in between faculties, researchers, what should be the thickness of the research report, right, how should it look and all. Generally earlier days I used to see, when I have seen my teachers or my elders, their reports and all, they used to be very thick, heavy volumed and big in size, but that is not desirable. A research report should be, as suggested by many good organizations, many good institutions like the IITs and all, there has to be a maximum of maybe let us say in between 100 to 150 pages, right. This is just my own thought process I am saying, right, you might agree or not agree, but if you are writing too much, that means sometimes the researcher brings in lot of anomalies into the study, right, and a not so properly thought process involved in the study, right. So, the more concise the report, it is better. Okay. So, the three stages are the preliminary sorry, the preliminary are the preface pages, the text of the report which is the main body of the report, and the reference material that you have used. When you make a report citing the work of others, it is extremely important, otherwise there is a chance that you might be sued in terms of plagiarism, but beyond that it is not wise or honest to do that, right. First, the preliminary section. The preliminary section consists of these things. If you see the title page, so what is the title page? Now, the title page should be including the title of the study. Now, the title of the study should not be extremely long and very complex, right. It should be as simple and clear as possible. Then certification, candidate declaration, preface including the acknowledgements, table of content, list of tables, how many tables, which page and all, list of figures that you have used, list of abbreviation, because many a times when I was when I was doing my PhD, we have seen that our professor was very particular on the abbreviations you have used, because many a times the researcher understands the abbreviation, but he feels that it is okay, and he does not take into account that others might not be able to follow the same thing, right. So, as a result it becomes very complex and complicated, maybe when you are studying reading the page number 75 and suddenly you come with an abbreviation, you do not know where to look for. So, that becomes difficult. So, abbreviation should be there the first, the preliminary section itself. Okay. Then the introduction. In the introduction, the background of the study, the problem statement, how did this problem arise, what is the purpose and objective of the study, what are the possible research questions that you have come across or you have developed as a part of the study, what are the definitions of the terms being used in the study, and what is the significance of this study. Finally, the conclusion. It is better to have a conclusion at the end of each chapter. This is for all thesis writers, maybe MTech thesis, research reports or even PhD thesis, whatever. And conclusion at the end of the study, each chapter is extremely important or wise to do that, right. Chapter 2 is your literature review. Now, what is this literature review all about? Literature review is the literature that you have cited of all those researchers who have done a study in the particular area, right. So, suppose you are doing a research on, let us say, distribution. So, all people who have done research on the similar area, what they had to say in a particular circumstance is would be part of the literature. Okay. So, the body of the literature would be the general area of the research, underlying theory, right. So, what is the underlying theory in the behind this research, right, is very important. What are the variables used from the other literatures, previous literatures, right, your theoretical framework, your hypothesis that you have developed, and again your conclusion. So, the literature review is basically nothing but respecting those researchers who have worked in your area and trying to give them the value of worth that they have done for, right. So, as a researcher you need to support their work or discuss their work and something that is relevant to yours, and then come out with the variables what you have used from their literature, earlier literatures, and what are the underlying theory on basis of which your research is dependent on, or your researches would be the foundation of your research would be built on, is very important to discuss. Okay. The third is the research methodology section, right. In the research methodology section we talk about, although we have done it in length, but still when you are writing a research report it is very important to understand them. In the research methodology section you talk about the research design. So, what research design am I going to use, right. What are the variables? Research design I have already spoken about it. So, it includes all those like the kind of research, the sample, the scale, everything, right. So, the variable and the measurement. So, what variables have you used? Why did you select those variables? What is the rationality of selecting those variables? This is very important from a researcher's point of view to explain why this variable and not this variable. And again I have said when you are building relationships, for example you are trying to prove a hypothesis, in those cases it becomes extremely important for the researcher to justify the reason for developing a hypothesis. Okay. So, earlier I used to say, let us say A affects B affects C and then it affects D. So, this relationships whatever comes, they have to be theoretically rightly justified, okay. Otherwise it should not be done. Then comes the questionnaire design, instrument, the way you want to collect the data, population and sample, scope, and then the data analysis, right, and finally again the conclusion, right. Finally, the data collection and the data analysis, in which we are checking for the goodness of measure, the representativeness of the data, the validity tests, whether the instrument that we are using are they valid enough or not valid, how reliable are they, right. So, those things have to be checked. Validity, reliability we have already done, we have talked about earlier classes, we have talked about construct validity, discriminant validity, composite reliability. So, these are the terms which we have used, right. Finally, we talk about the inferential analysis, the descriptive analysis, the correlation analysis, types of relationship, the hypothesis testing, and again the conclusion, right. So, every chapter is followed with the conclusion, right. Discussion, and the final chapter is the discussion and conclusion, the most important chapter. The in fact you can say the crux of the matter lies here. Whatever the researcher has done, the finding comes in the discussion stage. So, here he discusses with the scientific world, okay, what is his work all about. So, discussion, implication, theoretical, practical implication. So, sometimes it is called theoretical and managerial implication also in management, limitations and future research scope, right, and again the conclusion. So, the finally the reference material. The reference material is generally divided as the bibliography. So, what kind of a style you are using. So, if you are following a particular style, let us say the American Psychological Association style, APA style we say, then you have to follow the entire study on that way, right, or the Harvard style, some other style, right, whatever style you are following, the same style has to be followed across the research report, otherwise it is not it is not well taken, okay. The appendices should be having your tables, the output data sets and all these things should be there. Glossary of terms if any, right, and indexing if you have done and if any. So, these are all part of the reference material stage. Okay. When you talk about the title page, these are some of the, this is something given by Elrick and Lavidge guidelines, the title page. It says avoid research, right. Practices followed in selecting long distance careers, for example, is better than long distance service study. Now, what is it saying? Now, when you are making a title page, please be very careful, because your title page is the one which the world is going to read, right. So, if your title page is clumsy, is not very clear, then your study would get a little lower value, right. So, similarly, customer reactions to an expanded financial insurance relationship is better than relationship study, because if you say only relationship study, it does not mean what relationship all are you talking about, rather it has to be more clear, insurance relationship, financial relationship, what are you talking about, okay. And in conclusion, similarly he says conclusions concerning, for example, customer behavior, customer attitude or perceptions, the nature of the marketers studied. So, generally in studies with the samples designed to represent the market, avoid interesting results that are not relevant to the conclusions. Now, this is something very important, is a very good writing piece of information. Suppose you have, many a times researchers do this, fall into this trap. If you have not done a study, or if something is not coming as a part of your data, or you have not there is no backing or substantial scientific backing, then please do not cite such data, right, do not write anything regarding that, because they are not relevant to your study, right. So, maybe in the form of statements or paragraphs, use subheadings to identify conclusions covering different subjects or market segments. What are the difficulties or problems while writing a report? The problem is of communication. Many a times while writing a report, even we are finding difficulty in the technical terms, they should be properly explained. So, if you are using a technical term, kindly explain it properly, because the world might not understand it. It should neither be too simple nor too difficult expression. Simple is still okay, not too difficult, sure. level of knowledge and subject matter of the reader. So, who is going to read your report? Accordingly, your subject matter should be there, and your should be explained in that way. Language and drafting, how nicely you are drafting, how good your language is makes the report more beautiful, more interesting to read. Okay. The problem of after the problem of communication is the problem of objectivity. Now, many a times while writing a report, the researcher finds it difficult to maintain its objective. What is the objectivity of the study, right? So, he sometimes misses the path and goes to another field or another area which actually is not his major objective of the study. So, one should be very careful while deciding what is the objective, and you should stick to your objective, right. The problem of expression of bitter truths and unpleasant facts. Now, that is very interesting. Although truths are good, it is always important to say the truth, but how do you say the truth is important. So, if the truth is bitter and it is unpleasant, you should know how to express it. Okay. So, preparation of drafts, there are first draft, second draft, third draft. So, the first draft includes the comprehensiveness or fullness of the facts, precision or accuracy of facts, logical flow, and the movement or transition of the facts and ideas. Similarly, when you are talking about this is the first stage, first report. The second report I think is there. Well, the second and third report is basically nothing but in the second report you try to expand the thing and in the and check for any other inputs into it or something. Sometimes it is not necessary to have a second and third report also, but it is better to have always more than one report, because it is always you have improved upon it, right. So, when you are writing the report, you should be understanding these things. Reader, a report should be written for a specific reader or readers, the marketing managers who will use the results. Now, if you are writing for the marketing managers, it might not be the same report might not be very interesting for a scientific community, right. Similarly, something written for a scientific community might not be very interesting for a marketing manager. So, you need to understand who is your reader, and accordingly you have to write the report. Easy to follow, the report should be easy to follow, it should be structured logically and written clearly. Presentable and professional appearance. Now, this is very vital. Many a times I have seen my students writing research reports and then not being very particular about their appearance. They feel packaging is nothing, but it is very wrong, because after all we also judge a work by the way it looks from outside. So, you need to give special emphasis on how your report is looking. Objectivity is a virtue that should guide the report writing, that is what we discussed, right. The rule is tell it like it is, right. So, what is your objective, what you are doing, accordingly you should be doing it. Reinforce text with tables and graphs. It is important to reinforce your key information in the text. Suppose for example, you have given some data set, right, so or some data analysis. Please try to provide the information in the text through tables and graphs, pictures, maps, with a visual output, so that it becomes much simpler for the researcher to read and understand. Okay. Terse, a report should be terse and concise, that means it should be brief, yet brevity should not be achieved at the expense of completeness. Now, that is a trade off, right. Brevity, to be brief, to be concise, sometimes in order to be more specific, to narrow it down, you should not be doing at the expense of completeness. So, there has to be a trade off. Too much in trying to explain too much also, sometimes you start writing unnecessary things which is not wanted, and neither you should be trying to make it extremely brief also. So, guidelines of the tables now important. Every table should have a number, every table should have a number and title, both at the pictorial level, that means at the table level, and within the in the main chapter also. The arrangement of the data items in a table should emphasize the most significant aspect of the data. The data items in a table should emphasize the most significant. So, you can bold it, you can highlight it, so that one can easily see that and understand. Basis of measurement, the unit of measurement should be clearly stated. Now, many a times the unit of measurement is missed by mistake, that is a crime, one should not do it. Leaders, dots or hyphens should use to lead the eye horizontally, impart uniformity and improve readability. Instead of ruling the table horizontally or vertically, white spaces are used to set off data items. Skipping lines after different sections can also assist the eye. So, these are something the techniques which as a writer you should use, so that it becomes more clear, visible to the reader. Okay. Explanation and comments, headings, stubs and footnotes. Designations placed over the vertical columns are called headings. Similarly, the stubs are the left hand columns, Information that cannot be incorporated in the table should be explained by footnotes. So, suppose there is some information in the table that you are not able to provide there because of the lack of space or something, please give a footnote, very important. Sources of the data, if you are not giving it, then you are doing a crime. If the data contained in the table are secondary, the source should be cited. Now, this is the characteristics of a good report. So, how should a good report look like finally? It should be attractive. So, attractive from all angles, everything is clear, concise, presentable, everything. Topic is clear, because the topic is the one through which the reader is searching your topic maybe on Google or somewhere, right. So, the topic has to be very clear. Balanced, the language has to be balanced, not a very you cannot use a highly extremely difficult language for somebody to understand, nor you can use a language which is highly unscientific and looks very loose, so that the researcher is starts losing interest. He says this is something like a very common report. Do not repeat facts, duplication of facts should be avoided in a report writing. Statement of the scientific facts. So, you have to give the statement behind the scientific facts. Practicability, the report should be highly practicable in nature, and description of the difficulties and the shortcomings. If there is any difficulty, any shortcoming, it should be explained properly. This is what a good report becomes, right, looks like. So, so these are things one has to be careful. Review of literature, treatment of quotations, size and physical design, footnotes, abbreviations, use of statistics, charts and graphs, bibliography, index and appendices, and conclusions. If you are following this, all this which I have said, then there is no doubt that your report would look much better and clean. Okay. Now, coming to the oral presentation. So, the key to an effective presentation is preparation. So, they say if you want to present somebody, you have written your report, but now you have to present the report. So, when you present it orally, a written script or detailed outline should be prepared following the format of the research written report, right. The presentation must be geared to the audience. So, when you are making oral presentation, so the PPT or whatever material you are making, it has to follow certain outline guidelines, and then the presentation must be made according to the audience who is going to listen to that. The presentation should be rehearsed several times, obviously the more you prepare the better it is. Visual aids are must, should be displayed with a variety of media. It is important to maintain eye contact and interact with the audience during the presentation. So, this is the oral presentation side. So, I am just trying to brief you. When you are doing oral presentation, look at the eye, try to when you are more involved, obviously the researcher, the audience feels that the researcher is involved and he is contributing something seriously. Okay. Filler words like yeah, all right should not be used. Okay. Now, these are important small things, but they are important, they matter a lot. Your presentation can be termed good or bad on basis of these things. Tell them principle ineffective for structuring a presentation, right. Keep it KISS, the principle of KISS, which states keep it simple and straightforward. Your presentation should be simple and straightforward. Body language should be employed whenever you are speaking. Your body language should be positive and you should be using it as often as possible, because By that your involvement comes into play, and the audience is not only listening to you, he is looking at your body and he is trying to understand from there also, right. The speaker should vary the volume. Now modulation, now you have seen some very good leaders, political leaders and all, now they are very good, they very nicely modulate their voice, the pitch, the voice quality and all. So by doing all this, they they have improved, they improve their presentation abilities, okay. So this is all we have. So I hope you are through with, you have understood the importance of report writing and the oral presentation, and I hope so if you follow these simple techniques, your report writing can become much effective, much better, and I am sure you would surely do better than what you have been doing earlier, right. And saying this, with your report writing, your oral presentation should also improve, and to keep those simple things in mind, and I am sure you will do better. Thank you very much.